Welcome to another episode of Sparksandblues, where we dive deep into conversations with leaders, innovators, and trailblazers who are currently shaping the future of their chosen fields and beyond. Today, we have the privilege of hosting an extraordinary guest in person of Dr. Oshunniyi. Dr. Oshunniyi is a distinguished medical professional with over 35 years' experience in the Nigerian healthcare industry. He's currently the co-founder and chairman of Health and Managed Care Association of Nigeria. He is also the co-founder and chief executive officer of ICO Multishield Limited. Dr. Oshunniyi has held several senior positions within private and government sectors in the Nigerian healthcare space. He is currently at the helm of driving innovation, policy influence, and sustainable practices within the healthcare ecosystem, where he plays a pivotal role in influencing policies that drive sustainable healthcare delivery across the nation. In this episode of Sparksandblues, we'll be discussing the development and sustainability of managed care systems in the Nigerian healthcare industry. Let us spark up the dialogue and dive straight into the Sparksandblues of healthcare transformation with Dr. Oshunniyi.
You're welcome to Sparksandblues, the podcast where we invite distinguished personalities who are making waves and succeeding in their chosen fields to talk to us and inspire our audience about prevailing topics within the Nigeria space and globally as well. So today we are delving into a key and significant topic within the healthcare industry. And joining me in the studios today is a distinguished guest in person of Dr. Oshunniyi.
Good afternoon.
I'm happy to have you here, Dr. Leke.
Glad to be here.
How are you feeling today?
Thank God.
You're sincerely and most welcome to Sparksandblues.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you briefly what we do here. At Sparksandblues, we invite distinguished personnel like you, to help us talk about your real life stories, share your wealth of experience so that our viewers, our youth in particular, can be inspired from watching you, listening to you, and being aware that there are still real life people that are excelling and succeeding in career and doing exploits in various fields. And that is why we decided to bring you on this program. Thank you very much for honoring our invite.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Dr. Leke, I'm aware that you are currently the co-founder and chairman of HIMCAN, which is the managed care body that looks after all HMOs in Nigeria. You are also the co-founder and chief executive of ICO Multishield Limited. So based on that, I would like you to share your journey into managed care and also how you became involved with leading an HMO in Nigeria.
Okay, thanks a lot. First of all, HIMCAN stands for the Health and Managed Care Association of Nigeria. It used to be the sole umbrella body, but a few years ago, another group arose, the Association of Health Insurance Practitioners.
All right.
And quite a few of the HMOs are now non-aligned, so they never belong to us, to the Association of Health Insurance Practitioners of Nigeria. We are trying to see if we can bring everyone back home under one roof. So my foray or my journey into health insurance is quite interesting. I finished my youth service in the 80s.
Wow.
quite a while ago.
Definitely.
And I started working for a group of young men.
All right.
In a hospital known as Royal Cross Hospital at the time. And at about the time I started working with them, an American company approached my bosses.
All right.
And they said, we don't like this retainership system you run in this country, whereby a company nominates a hospital and then sends people who are ailing to that hospital to be treated. At the end of the month, the hospital sends a bill to the company and the hospital gets paid. They said, we don't like that. It's an open check. We can't budget for it. Is there a way you can give us a figure to look after 200 members of staff in our company? And so my bosses, 3 of them, Dr. Doyo Kupe, politician, Dr. Sheyi Roberts, the neurologist, and Dr. Ladi Okuejo, the well-known medical entrepreneur. So they put heads together and they said, okay, let's ask these people to pay 50,000 naira for a year, to cover a year of treatment. Now you may think 50,000 naira is nothing. But at that time, he would have bought 4 brand new 505s. The 505 was the car of the time.
Wow.
Probably the equivalent of a Camry.
Today.
Yeah, a brand new Camry, which today you can't get less for less than 70 million.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's it.
So the value of that 50,000 now at that time is almost 300 million today.
Wow.
It's amazing. Even though I was there,
It's shocking.
it's amazing.
Wow.
So I was the one who used to keep the records of the members of that company. It was interesting. At the end of the day, take all the case notes and start to write malaria. We cost it at our normal rates. At that time, we used to treat malaria for between 7 naira 50 and 15 naira. Not 1,000.
I can imagine.
just plain 15 naira.
Wow.
And so over the weeks and months, we kept these records. And then at the end of the year, we added up everything.
Everything.
And lo and behold, we found that we had broken even. It was a surprise to us too that this thing worked.
Testosterone worked.
Yes, So I started the work on the 1st of August in 1984. And the following year, about exactly a year after I started work there was a military coup that brought in the Babangida government. And General Babangida now replaced his health minister. General Buhari before him had appointed a gentleman, Dr. Emmanuel Nsang, a 1975 graduate of the University of Ibadan, to be the health minister.
All right.
As soon as General Babangida came in, he changed the health minister and brought in the very famous and legendary Professor Olikoye Ransom Kuti, older brother of no less than Fela and Nicola Kuti and Beko, Dr. Beko Ransom Kuti. It would have been a family of 3 male doctors, but Fela decided that he wouldn't study medicine.
Do music.
He would do music instead. So now the Federal Secretariat was very near our hospital in Opalede. So one day, a team was put together of the Association of General Practitioners, of which Dr. Doyo Kupe was then chairman, Lagos State.
All right.
The publicity secretary was Dr. Sheyi Roberts, some NMA members. They went in a group to pay a courtesy call on the Honorable Minister, Professor Olikoye Ransom Kuti. And in the course of the meeting, Dr. Kupe brought up the fact that why don't we do health insurance in Nigeria, he asked the Honorable Minister. We've done it on a small scale in our clinic down the road, and it works. So he could say that because we had done a collation.
Exactly.
I'd done all the
Had some
additions.
data.
So it was my data that was now being presented to the Honorable Minister. And the Honorable Minister said, why not? Sounds like a good idea. And there and then, he set up a committee. Asked another friend of ours, Dr. Shegun, to be the secretary to the committee. And that committee was what committee that midwifed health insurance in Nigeria. It took a while. This conversation was held in 1985. It took 14 years
After.
from August 1985 to May 1999 for us to finally get the law.
Wow. 14 years.
Yeah, 14 years. But in between that, I had been very active in the Private Doctors Association. At that time, we thought that this is what will rescue doctors and the enrolled population from this having to pay out of pocket. So we had great hopes.
Massive ones.
Yeah, massive hopes. Almost 40 years now.
Wow. That's some
It's a
feat.
while.
Yeah.
It's a while.
That's
So,
some feat.
in the meantime, I started to rise in the Association of General Practitioners. I became the Public Secretary of Lagos State. Then I became Secretary Lagos State. Then I became the National Treasurer. Eventually, I became the National Secretary General. And so we were tracking this law through all its phases. Of course, it was a military era, so there was no hearing or anything. But there was white paper, brown paper, and so on and so forth. Until in the final act of his administration, General Abdulsalami Abubakar passed the law, which was Decree 35 of 1999. Later became Act 35 of 1999. Unfortunately, there were some features missing in the law that was passed. We had anticipated a law that would be all-encompassing.
All right.
A mandatory law that all Nigerians would have to subscribe to. Unfortunately, some clever person had changed the wording, just one word. It's amazing what the effect that one word can have. And the law now read, may subscribe to the scheme instead of shall subscribe. So it took 22 years,
Again.
yes, for the change from may to shall to take place. 23 years, less 10 days. It wasn't until May 19th, 2022, that error was corrected.
Correct.
So in the meantime, the states didn't participate in this national act, saying that, well, under the Constitution, health is not exclusive. It's concurrent. Federal can do it, state can do it. So we have that delay in rolling out this law that should have been mandatory from then. We now have a new law, and the regulator and the stakeholders are trying to see how they can implement the law. So that's where we are in the industry. So I've been in it from the very beginning. My entire career
Wow.
has been devoted to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lekki. That's some impressive history that you've put out there, and I can just only imagine how long you've been coming with all the names. I can resonate with some of the names like the Dr. Robertson, Okuboejo. I'm sure I've also had to interact with them, when I joined as well. That's really super coming from you. Well done. All right. So for our viewers that do not understand what health insurance stands for and how health insurance could or is currently contributing to universal health care in Nigeria, can you put in a word for them to understand, what we're about to delve deeply into today?
So first of all, it's important to understand the principle of insurance. What do we mean by insurance? So insurance is a term that dates back centuries. And in those days, where everything was so, would I say, antiquated, when ships left the port with goods traveling elsewhere, all kinds of incidents used to happen. Pirates could attack them. There were storms. The navigational instruments of those years were very, very inaccurate. So they could lose their way. And so people came up with an idea of paying a little sum of money, all right? Protection. Yes, to protect their goods from going astray or being stolen. And having paid that, they would then be compensated, okay, if anything untoward happens.
Went wrong, yeah.
We say in insurance, if the risk that they're insuring against, if the risk crystallizes. Okay. And so one factor of insurance is that it's a contingent payment, dependent on other things. And you cannot know the size, the quantum, or the date, the timing of occurrence of that risk. So it could be that water pours on your consignment of rice. Doesn't spoil everything, but spoils part. So that's not a full risk coverage. And so that principle now migrated into healthcare. All right. To say, well, falling ill is a bad incident. It's a risk. Why don't you pay a certain amount of money towards, compensating you if that risk crystallizes? So that's one way of looking at insurance. That you never know when you're going to fall ill, is money for a rainy day. But another way of looking at it is as a contributory scheme, where everybody pays money into a pot. And if the money is required, when a risk or an illness occurs, you can pull from it. So those are the perspectives that we look at health insurance from.
All right, that's quite understood, and I believe that's quite clear. So still speaking about universal health coverage, do you, as a leader in the industry and as a policy driver, do you think that the involvement of HMOs in Nigeria is paving any way or having any impact in the drive of universal health coverage achievement?
Okay, so now, as part of the industry of insurance, there are certain statisticians, mathematicians, very clever people who can calculate the chance of an event occurring. So what they do is that they have tables. For example, in Nigeria, life expectancy is about 55. All right? Yes. It means that if you average out the date of transition of people in Nigeria from infancy to old age, it will average at about 55. And they have tables of causes of death. All right? So a lot of causes are in infancy. You have malaria, a terrible killer at that time, gastroenteritis, respiratory illnesses, and so on. All the way up to falls and fractures in old age, hitting heads in old age, or falling down the stairs. Mm-hmm. All these things have a regularity of occurrence. So in determining how much it will cost to insure a person, you have to take these factors into consideration. For example, an older person will require much more care than a young man of 20 who has never been in hospital all his life. Yeah. By the time a person reaches the age of 60 or thereabouts, well, the chances are that he or she is contending with one of the illnesses. So the input of the actuary is so important in the industry. that no one should even contemplate practicing insurance of
Without
any form, health or general or life, without an actuary or a team of actuaries behind them. The actuaries, they will guide, and they're remarkably accurate people to within 90 to 95% accuracy. And it is these actuaries that determine how much it will cost to cover the risk. I'll give you an example. The birth rate in Nigeria is about between 2.6 and 3%. Okay? That means if you take 1,000 Nigerians, there will be 30 children born in that group in a year. That's if you use the 3%. Now, we know from our own studies that about a third of those deliveries will be by operation, by cesarean section, but 20 will be normal. Okay? Now, so let's take 1,000 people. 30 children are going to be born. Let's assume that the cost of a cesarean section is 250,000 naira. Right? It means that there will be 10 deliveries and you have to set aside 2.5 million
from that bulk
from that just for cesarean section. For normal deliveries, let's say normal delivery is 100,000. For 20 normal deliveries, you need to set up 2 million. So you need to have a vote of 4.5 million
to address that risk,
the maternity risk. So since it's 1,000 people, you divide that 4.5 million through by 1,000. Right? It means that everybody is paying 4,500 for maternity risk into the pool. Right? So that's a quick now
explanation.
The likelihood of the person sustaining a fracture that requires operative intervention is there. They know the rates. And all these diseases, the incidence of occurrence are known, and the cost of care is known. So it's the aggregate of all these risks that come together to form the premium. And then you add something for admin, and you add a little margin of 5% or 10% as profit. And that, in essence, is the way this runs. Now, what it means is that if your calculations are off, say by 20%, it could actually lead to insurance ruin. That means the company may actually be liquidated because those calculations have not been sufficiently well done. Now, we don't have very many actuaries in Nigeria, fortunately. Every young man or woman who's a mathematician who asks me, how can I get? I say, go and study actuarial science. All of them, I tell them. We've had to import actuaries from Kenya. That's how scarce they are.
Scarce.
And generally in the industry, the premiums that are being charged are not reflective of much actuarial input. So
that's
the industry is underpriced.
Underpriced.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for that.
But I haven't answered your question about
the impact.
All
the HMO activities. Yes. Is it showing? Is it? Does it have any impact yet? All what the HMOs are doing so far, is it speaking or addressing the progress of universal health coverage so far, or is just still really minute?
Well, according to the Director General of the Regulatory Agency, the National Health Insurance Authority, we have slightly less than 20 million people under health insurance coverage. In a population of 220 million, we are under 10%. So we're not yet there. But that law, if well implemented, is a platform on which we can build the numbers. And the DG has a target of 50% of the population by 2030.
2030.
Yeah, it is doable.
Oh, that's 5 years
Yeah,
time.
it's 5 years time, but it's doable.
I was wondering what 2030 was. It sounded long, but that's just 5
It's
years.
just 5 years away.
So it's doable.
Yeah,
we
so
can
at the
achieve
end
it.
of 2024.
But then, do we have, let me say, the backing? Do we have enough HMO systems or structures that these target of the DG can thrive on if we were to begin to really, enact the law and bring it to reality? Are the HMOs on ground substantial enough?
I look at the past. So even though the law, Abdul Salam Abubakar's law, was passed in 1999, it took another general, General Obasanjo, to actually roll out the scheme under the ministerial guidance of Professor Lambo.
All right.
So this past 19 and a half years have
years
been
are
like a rehearsal.
Okay.
We've
Towards the journey.
Yes. We've got a lot of people who understand that concept now. There are actually hundreds of people
Now.
And thank God for IT. By digitizing the process, one person can do the work that 50 people used to do.
I agree. Yeah, that's true.
So we've got a lot of expertise in the industry. We understand the concepts. There are probably over 65 HMOs. Inside each HMO is somebody who has understanding.
Yeah, I agree.
So what we need is a political will, all right, to go ahead and make this thing work. One problem is that the number of poor people who are unable to pay for themselves is rising. Yeah, 2 years ago, it was 87 million.
Yeah, I remember that figure.
Yes. Now we hear that is over half the population. Yeah, who are multidimensionally poor.
Wow. Multidimensional.
Multidimensionally poor. So they are unable to pay that sum.
So how would that be addressed?
Well, there are a lot of innovative ways being thought of.
Okay.
One is a direct payment by government.
Okay. Subsidizing it or funding it?
Yes, funding it.
Totally, yeah.
One factor working against that is the fact that Nigerians don't pay as much tax as they should be paying. So there's something called the tax to GDP ratio.
Yeah.
Last year, I think our tax collection was at the federal level 12.6 trillion. Because the value of the naira is shifting, back and forth, we will say it was about a third of the total budget. The first budget was 27 trillion, and then there was a supplementary budget. So it doesn't quite cover our costs, and a country should be run from tax returns.
Yeah. Just like in the developed world.
In the developed world. So if you have if our GDP as it then was about $300 billion, and we've collected $8 or $9 billion in tax, you'll see that tax to GDP ratio is about 3 to 4%. It's abysmal. That is the same level as Afghanistan or Somalia. Countries like France have a tax to GDP ratio about 45%. South Africa, beside us, has a tax to GDP ratio of 26%. They collect 9 times more tax.
And then economy moves.
Economy will move because welfare programs can work.
Can be funded, can be supported.
So that's one big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The underfunding of our government because people are trying to evade
the taxes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what would then have to happen would be starting with, when something is really massive, you might just start with what's really realistic. So maybe the working population, the people that can fund it, like, workers And
Yes.
those category of people
Yeah.
might start to drive it initially.
Yeah.
And then,
Which they're doing, at
but
least in
it's
the.
not moving as expected.
It's not moving as fast as.
Yes.
And there's a big
The
hole
years you are
somewhere.
calling 22, 14, those things are really like,
Yeah, time is lost.
yeah.
Lost
Add
time.
14 to 20, that's too much. And we are still
So
on
something that was
10%.
conceptualized almost 40 years ago,
It's
we haven't
moving
even started to roll it out.
generation to generation. All right, Dr. Leke, thank you for all those interesting insights, and I believe that our viewers are definitely, catching all of those. Yeah, we'll just go now into the regulatory aspect properly, which I believe you are championing, and you are among those really, shaping the policies, and getting us closer, hopefully, to where we want to be. So yes, what have been some of the regulatory challenges that the HMO industry in Nigeria has faced, and how do you think the regulatory challenges are currently affecting HMO operations?
Well, the issue of actuarially determined premiums has been with us for a while.
Do you think they should be regulated? Or, I mean, the actuarial guys getting involved in the premium decisions and all of those. Do you think if it's brought in through the regulatory aspect, it will be more enforced?
No, each
what's the
incarnation
point?
of the law,
Okay.
both the NHIS Act and the more current NHIA Act, they have embedded the requirement of the intervention of an actuary.
So why is it not
determine-
being operationalized in our reality? Why are we sort of sidelining it? Personally, I know that there could be like a lot of HMOs that do not actually use those services and they just still sell.
Yes, so we are talking about the private market. But in the formal sector, as we call it, those premiums have not been revised
Even
often enough to give us the correct actuarial position.
so every both sectors are sort of caught up in this, formal and private.
So it will be important, yes, both sectors
Are caught up in
to a
this
different degree.
lacuna sort of.
Yes. It will be important to have a regular input from the actuary, checking prices to say, this medication, this paracetamol is no longer 5 kobo per tablet, it's now 7 kobo per tablet. And that change will reflect in the total amount required to care for.
But then let me also just ask you again, this actuarial scientist situation, with the way the Nigerian space is economically, things just keep changing. The way they say you go today, you meet something else in 24 hours. How do you think all of those tough situations would even affect, the actuarial scientists if they were, so to say, come on board and begin to actively take part in getting our figures right?
Yeah, so what the actuaries do is to use current pricing.
Yeah, so would it not be too
In an environment,
frequent, like we do not begin to get challenged with our own economy?
well, it's actually the payers who will get challenged because it will track inflation. As inflation is rising, the cost of care will rise, which is the way it should
So
be.
where will it take us? To be realistic.
Well, let me give you some numbers from other jurisdictions.
All right.
Right? The healthcare industry in the United States of America is about 17% of GDP,
All right.
an amount which is in the region of 4.4 trillion US dollars. In the United Kingdom, the budget for the National Health Service in a country that has a little over 60 million people, almost 100% literacy, pipe-borne water, little HIV, little TB, no snakes and no scorpions. They are paying approximately £3,000 or $4,000 per person per annum. And that money comes from tax.
Yeah.
So 18% of your tax in the United Kingdom is devoted to healthcare.
Healthcare. Yeah.
So it's well funded. As well funded as it is, there's still a lot of complaints.
Definitely. Okay.
But here, we're talking of a premium of less than £10 per person per annum, which is what? 22,000 naira.
Dr. Leke.
So, compare 22,000 naira to $4,000. And you understand the magnitude of the problem. We're a poor country.
Yeah.
So we have to find solutions that suit the cloth that we can afford. We need Nigerians go into hospitals expecting to be treated the way an enrolled person will be treated in the United Kingdom. It's not possible. It's just not that capacity. People want to pay for a bicycle and get a Rolls Royce.
No,
we have to be realistic.
Yeah, I agree. And that's just going to take me to my next question, which is a lot of Nigerians still don't trust HMOs, or maybe they lack awareness. How do you think this can be addressed? You've already said, people pay peanuts and they want to be treated like royalty, so to say. But what do you think the HMOs should do? Because a lot of HMOs will definitely, most likely be losing out because, enrollees who are the payers, they do not trust the process. And I feel that is part of what accounts for some people not subscribing, because I hear that some corporate organizations do not even have such policies in place, despite the law and all of those things. How they get to escape, those things I still don't know. And you hear things like, it doesn't work. Do you think that is true as at today?
Well, generally, for metaphysical reasons, people believe that ill health is like an affliction.
It's not my portion.
Yes. And our greatest competitor in the industry is I reject it. I will not fall ill. Whereas the reality is that everyone ultimately falls ill, otherwise we will live forever.
Exactly.
So we have a lot of faith-based ideation and health-seeking behavior. People leave things too late. And I remember a lot of unfortunate incidents during my career. I remember the case of a lady who had 2 cesarean sections. Principles, once you've had more than 1 cesarean section, every subsequent delivery
should follow
be by, and there's a limit number of cesareans.
Yeah.
And I told her, madam, you've had 2 cesarean sections, please, just come in early, let's do a section for me. She disappeared. And then was rushed in
as an emergency.
She had been taken into a faith-based institution.
To prevent it.
No, to say, you will deliver this one yourself. You will not see a knife. And what happened is that the uterus ruptured.
Wow.
And as I placed my hand on the abdomen, I could feel the limbs of the fetus. Fortunately, both the mother and the fetus were lost.
Wow.
Because there's torrential bleeding inside the abdomen when that rupture happens. Yeah. So we see a lot of faith-based thinking. And a lot of our thinking is also not data-driven. Yeah. Generally in Nigeria, people do the same thing over and over again, totally ignoring the data.
And expecting different
results. So it's quite tragic.
I believe that is why we'll have you at the helm of affairs at HIMCAN. And I believe that we are progressing to see how things can eventually come together with NHIA, hopefully, and we could get better results within the health insurance, or let me say managed care industry. So what do you think regarding the future of managed care in Nigeria? What are the trends, or let me say innovations you think we should watch out for? What are the expectations that should sort of give us the butterflies to say, okay, let us still stay, let us stand in, this industry is still going to give us some butterflies in our tummy, very soon we'll be happy. What are those things you think we should watch out for, we should be expectant of? What are the goodies that you think are on the way for the industry?
Okay, one of the commonest sayings of a very good friend of mine is that without enforcement, the best law in the world is just good advice.
Wow. Without enforcement, the best law in the world is just good advice.
Just good advice.
I like that, and I believe it.
So it is crucially important that all the apex regulator, which is the NHIA, and the state level regulators, the state social health insurance agencies, enforce the law. That NHIA Act of 2022. How does that work? If your child wants to go to school, you must show an insurance card. If you want to open a bank account, show an insurance card. If you want to get an international passport or driving license, show your insurance card, current insurance card. That is the way you can enforce that law. By making sure.
Why is it not happening?
Oh, it will happen.
Oh, good.
It will start from state level.
So it's part of the goodies to look forward to.
Yes.
Oh, great,
yes.
great. As you can hear, viewers, be expectant.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Leke and his team are definitely working on something.
We're working with governments at all levels to make sure that that law.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Because if you look at it, our health spend in Nigeria is about 3% of GDP. There I go again.
Those figures are
so
crucially low.
Yeah, it's low, but if you take a GDP as your GDP as $300 billion, for example, it means that your health expenditure is $9 billion, which is fairly significant for this level. It's estimated that
220 million.
Yeah, it's estimated that to roll out the most basic universal health coverage.
Okay.
You
Most
need
basic.
about
I like that word.
maybe $40 to $45 per person per annum. So we're actually spending that money, but the money is being spent in a fragmented way. Somebody goes to one place, puts that in his pocket, pays 10,000 there, goes to a pharmacy, buys some medication. That money is being spent, but it's not well
put together.
tracked. Exactly.
No articulation.
We don't have coherent cash flows, and so the efficiency of spending is very low.
I see. Yeah. All right. So, what do you think has been your most valuable lesson from managing an HMO? I'm talking about ICO Multi-Shield now.
You can't run away from the actuary. You do that at your own peril. And, let the actuary guide you. It actually tells you that that plan you just designed, it will fail because of this, and this component. You better listen. Because they've done the numbers, and they can tell you. So, for example, Himkan ordered an actuarial survey at the end of last year. We're going to do another one. And we found that the base premium
should be
for a decent basket of benefits should be a minimum of 40,000 naira
per person per annum.
A person per annum. But we have a lot of plans out there from all HMOs, that are falling below that 40,000 mark.
Grossly. Yeah.
And the effect is what the DG showed us at the conference. A lot of HMOs have problems with sustainability because they've cut the margin so thin that there's no profit. And when there's no profit, a company cannot be sustainable.
Yeah.
When a company is not sustainable, it cannot deliver value to its stakeholders. And it's a vicious cycle. We're in the middle of a price war. It's a slippery slope. It's a race to the bottom.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
So speaking about what you just said, Dr. Leke, which I quite appreciate, and I believe is crystal clear, we need to begin to move towards positivity, and the experts to guide us in this pricing war that we are facing are the actual scientists, which we really need to begin to gravitate towards as that's HMOs and operators. Now, in today's reality, should there be a couple of HMOs, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the 65 or 70 that decide to say, oh, I'm going all out to work with actual scientist advice, and then they take it on and they begin to run? How will they really survive it? Do you think they can take the bold step and then others will follow suit with the way Nigerian industry is, that's the market? Or so what should it be? Because there could be some people saying, I think I want to do the right thing. I want to follow the advice of experts who are actual scientists to go to market and get my figures right. What will they not be attacked? If they are attacked, will they run off the market? What do you think people should do? How do we start?
I think government should intervene to stabilize the market.
So
it's a lose game for everyone.
So it's enforcement again that we need.
There have to be some standard. Central Bank has set the MPR rate.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's now almost 30% with what is called an asymmetric corridor. 50 basis points, 500 basis points, so you can give your loans around that mark.
Window.
Now, if a bank now comes and says, Central Bank is just talking their own.
It's not possible.
Me, I'm going to give my loans at 15%.
Yeah, they're out.
People, all kinds of people will come and draw loans, and inflation will mop up the asset base of that bank. So, in order not to cause instability in the system, Central Bank will quickly say, hey,
take it out.
Where do you get your figures from? Fall in line. And that's the role of a regulator. It's just like a referee on a football pitch. The first guy carries the ball and throws it to the net. If you allow it, that's the end of the game.
All right.
Yeah. So regulation is to give fair play and to grow the industry. It's not just fair play. If a referee is bad, people will not come and watch the next match. They say that game where they take stones and say we are not going. So a fair referee is a fair regulator that will grow the industry. And that's how the industry will grow. When the regulatory, look at how the banks grew because of Soludo.
Yeah.
He said, look, these banks are too small. Zenith Bank had 6 billion naira capital base as recently as 2003, 2004. Just 6 billion naira. Even taking into consideration the foreign exchange differences, that was a little, very small amount. Today, they are talking of hundreds of billions. And that is the way to grow an industry. You have to want to grow the industry.
All right, speaking of that, Dr. Leke, thank you very much for that feedback. I would say again, you sit at the head of HIMCAN, and HIMCAN currently speaks directly with the number one regulator, which is the NHIA. At the moment, or ongoing for now, do you have any set timelines? Because really, I don't think we can just sort of continue speaking about these things. Do you have a window or a timeline set up or that you are looking at to enable us sort of enact these policies so that this pain that we are going through, we can come out of it before it takes everybody out, really.
Okay. So, well, we have a very capable person leading the NHI in the person of Dr. Kelechi Oshunniyi.
All right.
As a doctor, he's unusual in the fact that he understands finance. He's actually done a lot of work in impact work, high impact work. That means work that has social impact. He's done that globally. He's worked with Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. He's worked in 2 ministries in Nigeria, health and finance. He's been a consultant with McKinsey.
Yeah.
So he understands all these numbers. He is a master of the art. Yeah. And we have a lot of hope in him in the industry. That for this time, we have a round peg in a round hole. You know, we have someone who can see the angles. And not only that, he's brought in an international consultancy overview, which we really didn't have before. We have people who are, you know, looking in to say, okay, what are these numbers? What should they be? So
we have
it's data-driven,
checking with him as well.
Exactly. Data-driven, evidence-based work. That's what we need.
That's what's ongoing now.
That's what is ongoing.
Okay, so that's good news to the
So all that background work, you won't see it now, but in a few weeks or months,
we should see the impact of the work.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for that one. That's some good news that I think people in the industry should look forward to, because we desperately need it, and I know people are desperately waiting, and people really can't wait to see the impact of the new DG, Dr. Kelechi Oshunniyi. And I believe that your collaboration at HIMCAN with them should definitely give us those positive results.
Conversation, you know, in a way that is not confrontational, but collaborative.
Yes, that's what we
He's
need.
extended the hand of friendship, because you saw him at our conference.
Yeah.
He left Paris to come for that conference.
Yeah.
And he came in that morning.
Yeah, that was really impressive.
Very,
that shows a big level of commitment and interest. I think that's welcoming, and I believe we should get results from the work
He knows
over
his
time.
audience, I can assure you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that one. Yeah, so being a leader, a great one in fact, over 40 years, hospital, starting what we are all doing today, HMO, health insurance, managed care, with all those top senior guys, those names I can imagine, and learning from them and then becoming an expert yourself. I believe you are more than equipped to throw out some advice to aspiring leaders. And this is why. You know, I said to you that I was at the HIMCAN, at the HIMCAN conference that just took place, and I realized that I did not quite see a number of people in my own league around, you know. So I know that a lot of people are sort of not too clear, which is part of what Sparksandblues stands for, as to how to navigate their journey. You know, they could just be looking, oh, Dr. Lekki, how did he arrive there? Oh, you know, this person, how did they get there? And all those big names. So there are a lot of other younger people that are putting in so much work as well, but are not too sure how they would come even close to those of you up there. So what would be your candid advice to the crop of younger ones within this HMO industry? What do you think they should be doing? How should they navigate their journey towards leadership?
Okay. You've spoken about the younger people.
Yeah.
The loss of talent to the Western world is massive. I mean, it takes a while to train people to understand what health insurance is all about. It's quite a difficult industry.
It is.
because it's a synthesis of two different professions.
Coming together.
Yeah, the medical and allied professions and insurance. And it's quite tasking. So when you train people for a few years and then they decide to leave the country, and you know that, this talent is gone and may never return, it's quite painful.
Jeez.
I've seen incredibly brilliant people leave the country. You frustrate minds. They leave and they become ordinary people where they go. They're just another cog in the wheel. I resisted that.
I agree, ordinary people, you're right.
I mean, when I was, I won a scholarship when I was much younger, a Mobile scholarship. And some people in America thought I was very clever.
Well, you are.
It was surprising
Looking at
to
the
me.
extensive work you're doing, you are.
Because I wasn't even amongst the best 5 where I was coming from. So when they said, and they sent people to interview me from Harvard, Cornell, come here, come and, they wanted me to do physics, nuclear physics. And I said, no.
You probably would have been building some aircrafts by now, or going to with Elon Musk to space to the moon or somewhere.
It just wasn't for me. I just said, no,
see.
I'm going home. They came to Nigeria again to try and convince myself. I'm not doing it. So when I see people who have the stuff to be, professors here, training the next generation, leaving, it's very, very painful.
Yeah.
So that has had a massive effect on your generation, and it's going to be more as you go to the Gen Z
and Gen Alphas.
Yes, and Gen Alphas. People are just leaving; they've lost faith, and I think that it's not all bad. I remember an experience I had in the United Kingdom. My neighbor in the United Kingdom repairs motorcycles for a living. So one day he saw me going out in a suit, and he thought I was going for a job interview. He said, "Big day, huh?" And I just felt, can you imagine this man? Me, well known where I'm coming from. You think I'm a job hunter? He just convinced me more that no, I'm not going to have anything to do with this idea of Japa as they call it now. So that's why you're not seeing, there's that gap. But if we can bring back hope to the country, more people will stay. More people will stay because at a point in life, you need to be able to match up to a certain standard. And a true story, one of my doctors back in the day was in a bus. And one of our patients in the hospital had seen him come into the bus. So when the conductor came, she shouted, "Doctor, I paid for you here."
Oh my God.
The young man was mortified. I mean, it was like he should bury his head.
No, that's
Real life story.
never heard that before.
Honestly.
Oh my God.
Said, "I've paid for you here." And she looked back and all the eyes turned to the doctor. Doctor, inside mode where boss.
Oh my God.
What's happened? They say maybe it's not a real doctor. So what do you expect a man like that to do? Eventually, that young man traveled to America in the late 80s. He drives a Rolls Royce in America now. He's a multi-millionaire in dollars. So you can't blame him.
Yeah, so what do you want to tell the ones that are left? Because really, there's this, what's the word now? When you are moving forward, you need to look back and say, okay, who are those that are going to sustain? So talking about sustainability for the health insurance industry, even sustainability for HIMCAM leadership and all of these conversations that are ongoing. What the people that are supposed to then sort of begin to step in, what's your advice for them? How will they sort of see themselves coming along towards those of you that are up there? Because if something is not done, that lacuna could, really degenerate. And we are trying to build this industry, get it stronger. What then happens? So can you talk to the crop of guys that are still there that are not sure? The ones that don't want to japa, they want to stay, but they are not sure of their space, their position. What would I get if I make this effort? Because for you to be heard, really, you probably need to put in some effort to get you up there in the HMO you represent before you can begin to get the voice to even speak at regulatory levels and all of those kinds of things. So what's your advice to this crop of guys? Because I know some people are still out there living in some form of confusion as to how to join or become leaders in this industry and come just after your own group of guys.
So the decision to stay or leave country is almost always financial. So let me first give some general advice to young people. A lot of us do not understand finance.
Yeah.
So we're not financially literate. So we take the wrong decisions. Because we're not financially literate. A young friend of mine decided he wanted to buy a car. And I said, why do you want to buy that particular car, which is quite popular? A lot of people who drive taxis and so on. I said, why don't you buy a counterpart that will cost you between a third and half the amount? Why do you want to buy a car with a loan at 30% per annum? That's what my advice. An offer of some assistance. He took the car, the more expensive car. I went as far as to give him a schedule of payments that you have to do and how long it will take. I said, for this loan of 8 million naira, you're going to pay back 12 million naira over a period of 3 years. You have 4 million, so it was going to take 4 million. So, but that 4 million will be drawn out over a period, and the interest rate means that it's doubling every 3 years. Whereas he could have bought another car, which is good enough, with
the 4 million.
Yeah, with the money he had. So we see decision making like that is totally ignorant of principles of finance.
I agree.
So we would like to see people more financially literate. Also, we have a way of making decisions in this part of the world that are resistant to logic. So I tell every young person,
resistant to logic.
have you spoken, you want to be a psychologist? Have you spoken with a practicing psychologist? What advice does the person have for you? I tell people who want to study medicine, I say, if you want to be like Alhaji Dangote, this is not the place to start with. This job will give you security. You will always have a job. If you are diligent, patients like you will thrive. Yeah, but you will not be like the bankers or the oil people. Most of your patients will be from disadvantaged backgrounds. Because this is a third world country.
People.
Yes. I remember a patient who came in and said, doctor, I don't pray say make I see you. You can see the doctor will get beer. Now this your pikin sick. Now here we born ourselves. Doctor, as we did like this, chichi in my hand. He said, now you go treat us free. Even transport self, you go give us. In a private hospital.
Wow.
So you will see things like that. So be guided.
I like that.
Yeah, be guided. Be guided. You know? So I always recommend go and talk to people who are already there. They will save you 20 years of anguish. They will tell you, no, don't go that way. This is the way to go. In the same profession. Don't go that way. Go this way. You will find that you are better off. I remember my father, he gave me a sweet once. As he gave me the sweet, I threw it to the back of my mouth to crush the sweet. He said, no, lick it. He said, lick it. You will enjoy it better that way.
Please break that down.
So, people are in a hurry. Young people especially. Time is going. I'm already 22. And I'm not driving that car.
God. I'm
already 22. Time is going.
And I'm living with my dad. You know, I can't do this. I can't be doing this. It's affecting my mental health. I know. I get that.
You know, people exploit people. A lot of people who have done this jackpot thing, they can't afford the rent. The rent of a flat in London is £2,000 a month. If you are paying, sharing it with 3 other people, you are still paying £600-700. And if you look at the salary they are paying them, it's subsistence level. It sounds a lot when you translate it to Naira.
It's minimum wage.
Yeah, it's minimum wage. So a lot of them are not finding it funny.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when I travel, I see them.
It's not funny.
They're asking me for money. Are you joking? I'm coming from Nigeria at 1750 naira to $1. I said, please don't even crack that joke. Come back home
and get something doing.
Yeah. So
what do you think they should do? I still need to hear.
So, like I said,
in this industry,
first of all,
succession planning, more or less, for your level, the lacuna, and then the people there. How do they get into that middle?
No, so listen to the advice of those who went
in
before
front.
That's the senior.
That's the summary. I agree with that. Listen to the advice of your seniors.
Yeah.
I think in raw terms. Yeah, be humble enough, be realistic enough to believe and trust the feedback of those that have been in those shoes you want to put on.
You can even democratize the advice. Talk to 10 people and find the happy. Take something from everyone. Talk to 10 people in the profession. They will guide you and say, don't touch that thing. It's hot.
Burn your fingers.
Burn your fingers.
All right, Dr. Leke, I'm enjoying this one and it's really nice. So, we're about rounding up. To fix this industry, for example, if you had the magical powers, the wherewithal, you had the law, you could enact, you could do, and all of those things, what would be the one thing and the first thing? Don't tell me it's actual science or scientist that you would do to fix the health insurance in Nigeria.
There's no perfect law. And the NHI Act of 2022 has some flaws.
Yeah.
There are some ambiguities in the law. And there are some duplications of function. So I would recommend very, very highly that the apex regulator and the state level regulators come to an agreement on certain issues. What are these? I'll give you an example. For example, the NHIA insists that only providers accredited by the NHI should provide services to enrollees. Whereas the states, in Lagos State, for example, there's an agency called a farmer.
Yeah.
Is also an agency whose functions actually overlap those of the NHI. Now, at state level, there has to be an agreement to cede some of that function to a farmer so that the state does not begin to get into conflict. And so that we would have to test the law in the courts. It's important that these agreements be reached. And the guidelines can actually clarify some of these things. We're waiting for the new edition of the guidelines. Right. Those ones were so badly flawed, the circulation was discontinued.
Discontinued, oh, I see.
So that's one thing that is very, very essential. Where does the reach? So the law says that the state health insurance agencies will determine the mode of collection of contribution.
In their states.
But the same law says that the NHI would approve what the states as, so we are beginning to
they need to arrive at a synergy.
Yeah, they need to arrive at some comfortable point where they say, okay, this is the way we will do it. Right. If there's a requirement for cross-subsidization, then this is the way we would handle it. But that conversation is not really going on the way I anticipated it would. So
that's something you really wish you could fix
as
soon as possible.
Oh yes.
All right. Looking at all the caps you wear, from leading one of the top HMOs in Nigeria, ICO Multishield Limited, leading HIMCAN, in and out with regulators, both state levels and the rest. I know that, yes, we are sitting now in Lagos, but I believe that at some point you might also have been relating with other state agencies. Some would have been contacting you for whatever reasons, and dealing with the NHIA, the DG, and all of these things, it's a lot. So together with personal life, because you definitely have your personal life, you have your health and the rest of them, how have you been excelling at work-life balance?
Well, I thought that I would be able to create a whole period of time, like 2 weeks or 5 weeks, go on a vacation and, come back to work. But I found that over the years, we've just been continuously walking a knife edge. And to take that volume of time, 5 weeks off, be difficult. Things may happen while they are away that, are difficult to cope with. Mm-hmm. So I try to make sure that every day is an amount of time built in for rest and recreation. Mm-hmm. I cycle every day, or let me say, I cycle 90% of days. I love to cycle.
Really? No wonder. I see you being so agile.
I love cycling. Just gives me such a thrill. So that's, and while I'm cycling, all the thoughts seem to arrange themselves in my brain. Maybe the blood supply to the brain improves.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I make sure I do. I try and read the papers, try and keep up with my knowledge base, and try to make sure everything just
sort of
aligns well.
And then you're happy. That's a good one. That's a good one. Obviously, you are getting hold of things. I can see you are quite fit, and I know that the business you are leading is doing well. Yeah, so for all the people that come in here, like I said, are people that are excelling in their chosen fields, top guys that are doing so well, even beyond their chosen areas. And would usually like to give them a couple of seconds or a minute to talk about their brand, what they are pushing. I know you are leading ICO Multishield. So would you want to give our viewers, our listeners, a few words about ICO Multishield, and should they want to contact your organization for business and all of those things? So you can, this is the time for you to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. The name ICO, of course, is a household name and has been since the 60s. ICO first came onto the scene in Nigeria in 1963. So it's more than 60 years old. And ICO Multishield actually started out as Multishield. But we said this big company now took an interest in small Multishield and is now the core investor in Multishield. So that brand, that 61-year-old brand, it is the might of that brand that propels our operations, And yesterday, for example, we had a retreat looking into the future. Say, what does the stakeholder base expect from us? How can we meet and exceed those expectations? So it's an ever-evolving, ever-changing landscape. And we do our utmost to make sure that we keep up with this treadmill of life that is Nigeria. So you can be found at www.icomultishield.com, our website, and everything you need to know.
It's found there. All your social handles will be found there.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one. So if you need to contact ICO Multishield Limited, as he has said, he has read out the website, and if you go in there, you could see all their social handles, their numbers. If you need to reach Dr. Leke for further conversations, I believe you could get a number there to reach him on. So thank you very much for that one. We are coming to the end of our session, and to wrap up, there's usually a question also that resonates with our own brand and that I would like to link with the conversations for the day. So yes, as you can see, this is Sparksandblues, and Sparks stands for happy moments, pleasant things, good things that we all want. But then we know how things are. The world is not, people these days say, this world is not balanced.
Yeah.
So there's always the blue moment. You are a doctor and you know what that is. But yes, I'm not talking about depression as it were in mental health, but blue moments are also those things that could just happen to you even on a day-to-day. In a meeting, some comments you are not happy about, some mails come in as you are working, what decision is this? How is it affecting me? Different kinds of things, come up, and, you could just feel blue. So regarding this topic that we've discussed today, I'll just go back to it. Development and sustainability of managed care systems in Nigerian healthcare industry. Tell us the blues that you think you are experiencing or you have noticed in this scenario, and then the sparks you think you are looking forward to or that you are also experiencing around development and sustainability of managed care systems in Nigeria.
Yes, I would say it's been a bit of a disappointment that our expectations far back, have been delayed by the very slow pace of the enactment of acts and statutes. We should be much further down the field than we are. And when healthcare is inadequate, people die.
Life expectancy gets worse as well.
What our 55-year life expectancy means compared to Ghana's 60 is that if you take the population of Ghana, about 30 million people, it means we are losing 30 times 5, 150 million life years for the same population. How much work would those life years have brought to bear? How much wealth would it have created? How much happiness would those people have had? That's lost forever. And this is the way to look at, when health indices are so poor, when we know that 1 in 10 women who die globally in childbirth is a Nigerian.
Wow.
Those statistics are
Interesting
frightful.
numbers.
Frightful. They're abysmal statistics. So these are the things we want to change by a health system that works properly. Right? So those are the blues, that the slow pace doesn't allow us to save lives. I can't count how many people have come to me. I get a phone call. Doc, how's everything? Are you going for that event? Doc, one of my legs is swelling. I said, is it one or both? He says it's one.
When they come,
I said, is there any pain? He said, there's pain. I said, yeah, start coming. It's a deep vein thrombosis. The person would have died.
and he thought it was just this swelling.
I can't count the number of incidents like that I have witnessed in my career.
Near-death situations.
Near-death situations that require
That they were trivializing. They were not even aware of.
And the treatment is so easy. He said, doctor, he said, the treatment you gave me is as if you were the one who put the illness there. And you removed it. And I said, doctor, if you give me toothpaste as a cream, I will be well. So those are the sparks. That joy of knowing that you've made someone happy. Yeah. And everywhere, just a little advice. Why don't you go to this place? They will sort this problem out. We hope that we'll be able to do that on a larger scale, not just one man.
Yeah.
But the thousands of health workers.
Hence the industry.
Yes, to be able to give a better quality of life to people. Not people that die.
Universal health coverage.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Dr. Leke. It's been a wonderful time chatting with you today about the health insurance industry, about the regulatory involvement and the rest of them. Thank you so much for honoring our invite. And I believe that our viewers and our listeners will be so much inspired by your wealth of experience.
I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure being here.
Yes, thank you.